Yo, what is going on? PartTimerZack here. In today's video, I wanted to talk about 6-star memories and just kind of go over future sets, kind of what you should be grinding on right now. If you're doing the event, you're doing C5, you're like, hey, what do I do with these other, essentially these other 6-star memories? What do I kind of need to save them for? Can I recycle them? What do I essentially need to do? So I'm going to be talking about this and not in really any particular order. I just wanted to give you guys an idea of like what each memory does, when you can kind of use it, when it's going to be useful, and give you an idea. So if you are recycling memories, you get an idea of, okay, maybe I want to save this one. Maybe I want to do a 4 set with it and go from there. So the first one I want to talk about is Henson. And the reason I wanted to talk about this memory in particular is because Bianca is going to be coming up. And maybe you guys are Lightning fans. You kind of want to do a Lucia, Bianca, and stuff like that. This is going to be something that is going to be definitely really helpful for Lightning teams. The 4-piece here is going to be kind of a must-have for Bianca because you're going to be able to do quite a bit of stuff. As you can see, I'm not going to read every single little thing about it, but essentially what it does is it helps you out with thunderstorms in a certain radius, electrocutes the enemy, actually does a chain lightning effect that goes from target to target, and it helps you out with resistance so the enemy can take a little bit less or a little bit more of the lightning damage, and the damage of lightning in general just does a little bit more. So you can see that it helps out quite a bit when it comes to lightning teams, and something that you can kind of consider if you're looking to get somebody like Bianca, or maybe you're currently using a Lucia to help you out. So this is something that's really going to help you out in the future when it comes to lightning teams in general, and something to kind of consider if you are going down that path essentially with Bianca. So the next one I want to talk about is Shakespeare. So Shakespeare is actually going to be more of a niche one, I kind of feel like, and it's going to help out quite a bit with the flame DPS, essentially the flame version of Hensa, and this is going to help you out quite a bit if you have Katarina. But honestly, I feel like it's not really worth kind of grinding for unless you are trying to buff up your Katarina, or you have an Katarina in the first place, because fire is going to be a little bit not harder to get essentially, because you actually do have two main kind of characters essentially for fire right now. But if you don't have your Katarina right now, it's not going to be kind of worth investing in, and that is something to kind of consider. So if you don't have your Katarina right now, I wouldn't put too many resources into Shakespeare, and maybe just kind of grind for a 4 kit and kind of keep it depending on if you want to play fire eventually and go from there, because fire can actually be pretty devastating, especially if you're using something like Shakespeare. So it's just kind of an idea to let you know exactly where they can go. So Fredrik is going to be the next one we talk about, and I honestly feel like this one's going to be a little bit harder in terms of like you actually have to understand the mechanics a little bit more than any other memory, mainly because it's going to be a dodge kind of mechanic where a lot of the properties of this memory are contingent on you dodging correctly and being able to kind of get an idea for the mechanics of the game, but you get quite a bit of rewards. So just talking about movement speed here, if you dodge, you get a little bit of an increase of movement speed just from the 2 set and all damage dealt, and it can actually be stacked up to 3 times. And then the 4 pieces here are actually going to be doing the same thing with the dodge here, but it's going to reduce the attacker's speed by 20%, and you're going to see an increase in your damage taken by 15% for 4 seconds on an 8-second cooldown. So you can see if you can get an idea, like maybe you're really familiar with dodging, you're kind of good with the bosses, and you can start to kind of use this for somebody like Alpha to do just massive bursts of damage. So essentially that's kind of what it's for, is that you dodge, instantly attack, just do quite a bit of damage. And Alpha is one of those units that really take kind of advantage of something like that, because once you dodge, you're able to kind of help out with a lot of different things, especially if you're resonant her some of her memories and you're doing some of her different things with her weapon. She's going to be able to do quite a bit of damage, and Fredrik's going to help out with that. So what I would recommend is kind of having this on the backfield. It's going to be something you can kind of use on the back burner. Maybe you're trying to do a certain boss that you kind of have trouble with, but you're able to dodge, and you just want to do as much damage as possible because you want to get out of that fight as fast as possible. This is something to kind of go forward, and it's going to be a little bit more of a burst damage type of thing. So going into Hana, though, this is the next one I want to talk about. Hana is going to be actually really cool, and is actually a level up from one of the ones that you've probably already seen, Alfie. She's going to be essentially the level up version of this. This is going to be a good set for Cam and then a Katarina. Also going to be something good for Lucia when she's able to come out a little bit further in the game. So as you can see, her 4-piece here enters Matrix upon a 3-ping and grants a random single orb, 30-second cooldown. So it's kind of cool because it actually increases a lot of your damage, as you can see from the 2-piece, for your 3-point ping orbs, and it also gives you a random orb to kind of help you kind of going. So if you're kind of in a spot where a lot of times you're struggling with the orbs and maybe the order of them, or maybe you're not able to get enough, this is definitely going to be something to kind of help you out, because as you can see, you can definitely jump in here, do some different things with matrices, and get a little bit more damage for your 3-ping. So it's going to be somebody, like I said, that is going to be something good for Cam, a Katarina, and then the Lucia that comes out much later, and I would use it as a 4-piece set if I were kind of going for it. So like I said, if you want to kind of grind for it, you have an Cam right now, or you're kind of looking to get Lucia, this is going to be something to kind of hang out with and kind of save up for, essentially, at least for a 4 set. So the next one I want to talk about is Darwin. Darwin is probably the most versatile one, and the one you're probably going to see the most often in a 2 kit set. Is essentially one of the best kind of things to get going for a lot of different teams. Honestly, there are more teams that use a 2 set of her than there aren't, you know, a team that doesn't use her. So jumping into Darwin, you can see for every orb ping, all damage increases by 3% for 4 seconds and can be stacked up to 5 times. It's just definitely one of those things for any kind of DPS or anybody that are trying to turn into a DPS, say a tank or something like that. Maybe you're trying to turn S-Cam into a tank. This is going to give you quite that damage that you kind of want to need. So it's going to be something that you really want to kind of prioritize, at least getting a couple sets of these, because each one can be bound to a certain character. So you can get an idea of why it's going to be kind of important to get a couple sets of these, because you're going to be using them on quite a bit of different characters, and it's just going to be more versatile than not. So I definitely recommend, if anything, making sure to always keep your Darwins and always have an extra set essentially that you can use for something else. So that is just one of my biggest recommendations, that Darwin is one of the most important ones essentially from here. So the next one I want to talk about is Cody. And so going into her, I would really recommend her as a 2-piece essentially for a lot of different units, kind of going into like a Lucia or just S Katarina, because it's going to help you out quite a bit with signature moves and gains a little bit more energy when pinging an orb. So you can see it kind of helps you out with kind of getting your ult a little bit faster. It makes it require a little bit less energy. So essentially, if you're having those characters that are just kind of hard to grind out their signature move and you're wanting to get that a little bit faster, this is what you're going to be kind of looking for. Now, I would say this is kind of more of like a luxury type of memory and not something that you should like super prioritize. That is just like my humble opinion. But if you have a character that you're kind of really struggling to get signature moves off, and you know that it is quite a bit of damage, it could be worth kind of slapping a 2-piece on here. Now, the 4-piece overall is kind of cool for the damage increase, but honestly, when comparing something like Darwin, it's not going to be something that is going to be super high, because it's going to be kind of centering around the signature move and then giving you some different super armor. So it is kind of a cool 4-piece, but honestly, I would rather have the 2 Darwin than having her. But like I said, if you're looking to get somebody that can essentially accelerate the rate that you can get your signature moves, that is somebody to kind of consider when you're jumping on there. So the next one I want to talk about is Patton here. So Patton is going to be something that is like a signature for a lot of physical DPS. So think S Lee, think SRA Bianca, Alpha, you know, Rosetta, stuff like that. It's going to be something that you really want to at least get a 2-piece on, because it does help out the crit rate and the physical damage by 5%. Now, the 4% is just going to give you an increase in crit rate every single time that you do physical damage, and it's not actually a crit. You're going to get a little bit of a boost towards that crit, stacking up to a maximum of 20%. This effect can reset when you deal a crit hit, and then the crit hit increases physical damage by 5%. So you can see why it's kind of important for a lot of physical users to kind of use this one. And something that I really recommend kind of grabbing, especially since it's in the shop right now, is going to be kind of the most you're going to essentially get for a very long time. So something that I definitely recommend if you are using somebody like Alpha, S Lee, A Bianca, stuff like that, because it's going to help you out with that physical damage. Okay, so the next one I want to talk about is going to be the Davinci. So honestly, I think the Davinci is super like top tier, something that you're really going to want at least a 4 set with, because essentially what it does is if you put it on one of your supports, every time that support is called out, it actually triggers another construct's QTE for 8 seconds. And if they're all 3 out on the field, you actually get an attack increase by 20%. So you can see why it's important to put it on one of your supports. Definitely if you're using that one quite a bit for the QTE, you want to have this essentially a 4 set at least initially to kind of jump in there and help you out with quite a bit of your support. So this is something that I highly recommend getting. If you have them, make sure to keep them. If you are kind of getting them, don't ever recycle them, because they are super useful and something that you really want to have. They have a lot of kind of help when it comes to doing different assists. So, all right, guys, so I'm going to be talking about these 2 together, mainly because they do like a very similar thing, but one has to do with physical defense and one has to do with elemental resistance. So essentially what you want to do is QTE and 3 ping reduces the target's corresponding elemental resistance by 15% for 8 seconds, and it has a 10 seconds cooldown. Now this one pretty much does the same thing, but it's 20% and it's for physical damage. So this is something you're going to be kind of jumping on. If you want to do a 2-piece for essentially like your tanks and stuff like that, it does help out quite a bit, but not something that I would really prioritize, because you're only going to go for the 2-piece. So the 4-piece is quite nice, but honestly, I feel like there's a lot of better memories for 4 pieces that you'd rather put on your supports. So I would recommend, if you are going to use this one, for a 2-piece only, and kind of give an idea that there are better 2-pieces out there, and these are going to be kind of on the lower side of the priority, and then we're going to be kind of one of those ones that you can kind of get away with recycling if you kind of want to. I do kind of recommend holding on to at least 2 of them essentially, to give you an idea of like if you're running physical teams or elemental teams. Honestly, this one's going to be a little bit more important, because as you progress, there's going to be a lot more elemental teams, and it can be applied to any elemental team. Doesn't matter if it's fire or lightning, but this is going to be more of a diverse kind of thing that I would recommend at least having 2 of these for your future units. The next 2 I want to talk about are very similar to the last example. One's going to be for physical damage and one's going to be for elemental. So if you're using Belive, this is going to be kind of your bread and butter. It helps out quite a bit with the healing effect essentially, and giving you a little bit of boost for the physical damage and defense by 10%. You can also see that it kind of gives a drone here, and then it actually heals for 2% of their maximum HP per second and increases physical damage yet again. So it's going to be kind of helpful for a 4-piece if you're using somebody like Belive. Now jumping into Gwenevere, she's going to be somebody that you kind of want to use for like A-Live, S-Live, somebody who has a little bit more elemental to them, or on an elemental team. So essentially you're going to be using this one to help out quite a bit with elemental damage, resistance. It's going to do a little bit more of a healing and then give you a little bit more of that drone. As you can kind of see here, does a similar thing, 2% of their maximum HP per second, but it does increase elemental attack, not physical. So that's kind of be the main differences here. And I do recommend getting a 4-piece of kind of, depending on which way you want to go. If you're going to be more elemental, then definitely grab Gwenevere. And if you're going to be doing physical, then grabbing Philip. Honestly, I recommend having a 4-piece of both, just in case you can get a little bit more diverse there, but it's totally up to you kind of where you kind of want to go. And it can definitely work out quite a bit for just a 2-piece. You don't have to use them as 4-piece, but I do recommend having them at least at a 2-piece to give you kind of a bigger boost with your healing. So the last one I want to talk about is kind of a niche one. This is going to be helpful for Bianca, mainly as a 2-piece. It's going to help that basic attack increase. Mainly the reason that you want to use it on Bianca is because Bianca uses quite a bit of her just basic attack to get a lot of things going. So this is going to be kind of a recommended piece for her, but it has kind of a niche market essentially, because it's not going to be too versatile when it comes to other units that don't necessarily rely too heavily on their basic attack, and why I kind of left her as last. So it's going to be something to kind of help out if you're going for Bianca. You definitely want to grab a 2-piece of this at least. So essentially that is going to be it. That is quite a bit of 6 stars to kind of go over. We will be covering ones that kind of added into the game at certain points, because there's not every single memory in this game as there are on the JP side and stuff like that. But I wanted to give you guys an idea of what to kind of work for in case you're kind of wondering during your event. Anyway, guys, I will see you in the next one. Have a good rest of your night. Peace.